All right, welcome to the first lecture of Art 105 Intro to Drawing. I'm going to take you through just the really like week 1, 2, what you should be playing around with so we can get ready for project 1. Now, I teach this course like you've never picked up a pencil, okay? I know that sounds really, really elementary, but I don't want anybody to feel intimidated about what's going to be asked of them. This is nothing that you should be hesitant from. In fact, I would just kind of just strap yourself in and just say, let's go with this. It's kind of like a roller coaster where if you don't scream, you try to bottle it up, then it's actually not as fun. It's kind of nice just to let it all out and just go with it. Drawing may feel that same way to you, and I would say if you're feeling any of that anxiety, just don't even worry about this. I'm not grading if you have something that's completely masterful. Okay, I'm grading on your effort and the objectives and how you go about meeting those. Okay, so this is a very subjective way. So that being aside, I'm going to jump into this first lecture, and we're going to talk about how we can get ourselves to just get in the mode to draw. Okay, so the topics that we will explore in this, right, is what does drawing mean? Drawing on the right side of the brain mean, and also what if you've never drawn before, right? Like what if you're just completely novice to this? So if these are anything that are rolling through your head, great. We're gonna talk about that. So let's start with what does it mean? What does drawing on the right side of the brain mean? Well, as we know, there's left brain and right brain thinkers. Traditionally, actually, if you're right-handed, you think more with the left side of your brain. If you're left-handed, you think more with the right side of the brain already. So they even say that a lot of artists, the greatest masters, were already left-handed. So if you're left-handed, great, you already got a leg up on us. But for the rest of us who have to draw with our right hand, thinking mostly on the left side of our brain, we really have to sort of figure out how do we make that leap into that other hemisphere of our head that really allows us to translate the natural world into a two-dimensional surface. Okay, and that's the trick and that's the magic that we're really trying to obtain. So let's talk a little bit about this other hemisphere. Okay, let's talk about how we can maybe trick our brain into doing so. Okay, now we had to make this mental leap, and what this means is that we are going to be seeing more than looking, right? Right now, if you're looking around, you are processing and you say, okay, I see a door, I see a picture, but you're not really like analyzing everything about that door, everything about that picture, right? That's the difference between looking and seeing, is that you're really sort of analyzing every step, every procedure. You may even think, is this a wooden door? Is it a metal door? Where was it manufactured? Okay, the door handle, where's that placed? You could go into so many questions just about that door, right? Which allows your brain to map out that surface even better, right? If I asked you to sort of just think of drawing a duck, okay, and you had no resources around you, okay, you would have to visualize it in your mind. Well, really, by that visualizing in your mind, you would be able to see that duck, and then from there, kind of send those electrons, those nerve reactors down your hand and draw it. Right, it's sending that information directly from the brain into the hand, and you would begin to draw what you're seeing in your head. Okay, well, that's great. Now, that is that mental leap right there. Now we can make it even better by taking something that actually has detail, like if we actually were looking at a duck, and then mapping it in our mind and then sending it down our hand and our fingers to draw it. Now we'll get something that's even more realistic instead of probably what would be a stereotypical duck that's yellow or looks like a rubber ducky from like the side view if I had just asked you just to draw a duck with no resources. Okay, so if that makes any sense, it's the idea that you really got to picture this in your brain first. Okay, now to do that, we're going to do a few exercises. Now, one of them is actually even an assignment number 2 in your sketchbook. So you can see the drawing on the right. Now, when you look at it, you may even say, okay, I see a face. Great, yeah, it is a face. I did draw a face, right? These are blind contour drawings. I actually love doing these. I do them quite frequently still. I like their level of abstraction. I like their fun. I also like the practice of sort of hand-eye coordination and all that stuff. So I still do these, even if they come off even more of a humorous sense. You can do them with any object. I'm going to ask you, though, to try to draw someone's face. Okay. So if you have to even just look at a photograph, that's fine. If you have somebody there near you or in your house or wherever you are at and you want to draw, or if you want to really disturb somebody and you want to stare at them from across the table and you don't know them, or you stare at them and they think you're kind of weird, that's fine too. You do what you need to do. And I want you to draw them without looking at your paper. Okay, so that's the trick. If you feel like you need to put a cover sheet, or if you're in your sketchbook and you need to sort of kind of close the flap a little bit so you don't cheat yourself, the idea is that you stare at this person's face until you find like where those lines are, right? How you could change the eyes or the ear or something into a line. Now, I even like to think of it as a continuous line. It doesn't have to be, but it does help if you keep your pencil to the paper at all times, because it just kind of helps keep things in proportion. I like to sometimes pick mine up every now and then just because it adds more layers of confusion to it. So if you want to go ahead and do that, look at them. I usually actually start at the earlobe. And if I start at the point of the earlobe that's the lowest, and then it curves around and moves up the ear, and then around, and then kind of you do the inside details of the ear, and then from there I just kind of continue my line into the hair, where the hairline is around the ear, and that hairline will then move up and create the top of the forehead. Then I can swoop back around, creating the top of the head, and maybe it dips down to the shoulders or something. So I get all that hair sort of in. Sometimes I'll even use the neck, the shirt, to bring me back around, and then start again in the face by an eyebrow moves over and then becomes a part of the line that comes down for the bridge of the nose, coming all the way to the tip of the nose, doing the nostrils, looping around, coming back to the other side of the nose, going back to the other eye, and then the eyes can just kind of seemingly be hopefully underneath there. So anyway, I think you get the idea, but try this and try a couple of them really, of these blind contour drawings. And this is going to help you translate, as you're looking at your viewer, their face into lines. And once you kind of see that, then start drawing. Once you kind of figure out your roadmap to their face, then start drawing. Okay? And then as you're drawing, move slowly. So your eyes are slowly moving across. And then as your eyes move, that's when your pencil should be moving. Don't go quick, because then you just sort of lose train of thought. You're keeping track of two things at the same time. But by doing this, you're making that leap to the right side of the brain. Okay, so I'm going to let you experiment with those. And there are other drawing assignments in your sketchbook that I want you to continue. So assignments 3 through 6 help you figure this out, and those are going to be found in your book. So find those in the pages. So that's the upside down drawing, the face base, and so on. All right, so let's talk about when you say I can't draw. Usually someone says, "Oh, I can't even draw a stick figure." Well, let's not be too hasty here. Okay? In reality, everybody can draw. Everybody has drawn. You were a kid once, you were playful, you were creative, you were inventive. But at some point, maybe you sort of stopped doing that mostly and paid attention to other things. That's fine. It doesn't mean you're a bad artist. It doesn't mean you don't know how to draw. What it means is that you're just out of practice with it, and out of touch with it. So if you can write your name, you can draw, okay? And that's plain and simply it. We're going to take lines and we are going to push them to the max of our understanding this semester, and you will figure out how you can draw. I always say that style is always there. When I went to art school, people were like, "Oh, I need to work on my style." And, well, that's kind of a bunch of BS, because you already have it. It's already ingrained in you, your style, the things you like. They are already different than somebody else. Now, yeah, you may not be drawing to your max level yet, and you're still figuring out your techniques and some of the things that you'd like to add to it. But your style is already innate. That style can be even how you approach a drawing from start to finish. It could be how you like to shade drawing, or the lack of it. Maybe you only like a few elements. So let's not worry about style or developing any of that. Let's just draw and you'll be amazed at how everybody's drawings are going to look different throughout the semester, even though we're all drawing very similar subjects. Okay. Now, this is the formula that I'm going to give you that you need to know. These are the steps that I want you to follow. These are the steps that really any art teacher is going to tell you to follow. And they're in the book. They're in the introductory section, I think the introductory Roman numeral 25, I believe. And when you're looking to starting a drawing, just ask yourself, well, how in the world do I even go about this? How do I get from making just some lines on a page to now having this thing look real? Well, these are the steps. Okay, they're called the 5 perceptions, or I refer to them as the 5 P's. Okay, just for shortening it up. And the first being the perception of edges. Okay, simply put, these are the contour lines. Okay, and I'm going to show you this right here. Right, there's the contour lines of a pear. It's nothing advanced. You'd even see like, okay, well, there's some, when we look at that contour edge, we can see that it's kind of rough and jagged. Some are thick and thin. They overlap, right? It's not complete. That's okay, right? That's the very first step, is we are just trying to define some edges, okay? Now, when we define the edge, right, you don't see a shading anything, right? There's in this case, the one line creates a little bit of a detail, but there are no details. We are not focused on anything except these edges, okay? Now, as you create the edges, right, you inevitably are going to fall into the second step, which is the creation of spaces and shapes. So what started off as one single line, and then as it began to move, it began to continue and connect, and all of a sudden now we have something that is the pear shape, okay? So some artists like to take this all in one stroke. Some, and in this case, you could see where they did it individually. That's fine, but now we're dealing with shapes and spaces because we can see where this sits on the piece of paper, right? It's about dead center. Okay, so we have all this space on the side. We start to see that. We're starting to demarcate it, and we're starting to break up that surface, right? It's innately happening. You're not even trying. It just will happen, okay? Now, the next perception, number 3, is that of proportions, okay? Now, in proportions right now, you could say, how is the stem proportionate to the body? Because we know in a pear that the stem cannot be larger than the body, unless maybe it's like at the very beginning of its fruit stage. But, to have this shape and stuff with the stem, this thing would not be huge, right? We know that stem doesn't come, we also know that stem doesn't come out of the side over here. So that's what step 3 is talking about, is how are we perceiving what these things really are and how do they relate to each other? Is it in a realistic setting, right? Has the artist portrayed them to the best of their ability? No, it may not be the exact measurement or the exact proportion, but it's all relative, right? Now, number 4, step 4, notice how far down value is on the list, okay? I refer to this step, I put a star usually next to it because this is what students want to do first. They start here, and they do get some of the edges made into spaces and shapes. And then all of a sudden, they jump down to value. And they're just like, okay, I'm starting to shade. And they've never checked their proportions. And all of a sudden they get halfway through a drawing and their values look really great, but those shapes just don't make any sense. Their glass bottles are smaller than a shoe, let's say, that's next to it. But in real life, the shoe was smaller and the whole drawing starts to take on and they don't like it. Well, take the time to really make sure. So if you're drawing your edges and you don't like them, right, fix them. Now, if you draw your edges and you do like them, and you like the spaces and shapes that are, okay, cool. But maybe you drew one pair and you drew the next pair, and the next pair didn't look right. Good. Erase it. Start again, right? Redo them, okay? Take your time in these first 3 steps, because by the time you get to step 4, you're really going to be in deep. This is where you can lose a lot of time, and I like to call step 4 Johnny Depp eyes, okay? It's kind of a long story, but when I teach value, when I teach drawing, there's always going to be a self-portrait. You will have to do this at the end. And I'd always have, when I first started teaching, a lot of students draw Johnny Depp, because at that time when I first started, Pirates of the Caribbean was really popular. So I get all these portraits of Johnny Depp, and they would spend so much time on the value of his eyes because they must have been so dreamy or something that they didn't have time to finish the rest of the piece. And so I would get a lot of works that just had beautiful eyes, but very little done on the rest of the face. And so now I call step 4 Johnny Depp eyes. Don't do Johnny Depp eyes. We want something that holistically looks complete when we do our values and such. Which brings me to number 5, right? So here's what we have for 4. We've taken that pair and we started adding those values because we said, you know what, we like the proportions, we like the scale, we like the way we did our edges, so we're starting to add value. We'll talk a lot about value and its steps, right? And from there, we're looking at step 5-2, which is called the gestalt or the whole. How does this thing now look that it's done, right? If we like it, great, right? We're looking at this and we're saying, wow, I'm not seeing a whole lot of lines, right? There's a few on this edge over here, but they're really more of into this nice value. We see some core shadows happening here, this variety of light, which gives a lot of nice form. This thing looks three-dimensional and round. If I was critiquing it in the gestalt, I would say, well, maybe I want to add a little bit of a stem or some of this cast shadow, but maybe we didn't see it there, so that's okay. But when I look at this, I want a feeling of completeness. You'll know a sense of completeness in your work when you're not saying, I really need to change that, right? That's just how you'll know, right? It's just how you know. If we saw this shadow here all of a sudden get kind of light in the middle and go back to dark, we'd wonder what the heck's going on. We need a nice consistency in shadow, so we would know that the gestalt has been broken and we would need to fix that. So those are the 5 P's. Those are the 5 perceptions. Okay, and we're going to use these 5 perceptions in project 1 that you'll see in the next video.